Hey everybody, my name is Michael Cusanza. I am a brother initiated in fall of 2013. I was initiated to the LSU chapter Beta Chi. I was president there and master of rituals. Now I work as an admissions counselor for Loyola University in New Orleans. And today we're just going to talk about practical skills for a genuine connection, okay? So if we look at the context of what we're doing today, we're talking about the core six. And so you'll probably, if you haven't heard already, some different topics being shared today. We're talking specifically about relationship building. And what that means for us is fostering respectful and inclusive connections to build trust and mutual engagement. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look at that and examining it in our personal lives, in our careers, and just giving you some practical skills on how to do that later on. Now, okay, so why is relationship building part of the core six? Well, we as humans were built for community. It exists all around us. It's in all of our interactions. We have these different relationships, different communities. And the key to success in each of our communities is building those relationships with trust. The key to your success in your personal life and your career is building healthy and respectful relationships. Now, the other thing too is that we as an organization have core values of brotherhood and unity. And so it's really important to us as an organization. Now, brotherhood and unity, they speak to different aspects of relationships. Brotherhood being that familial bond, the friendship bond that you have with each of your brothers. And then unity as we as an organization coming together with shared ideals and shared connections there too. And so it's very important to us in our core values. And the other thing is that leaders lead by relationships. They lead by instilling respect and trust in those around them. And so you can't live in a silo. You need to be good at this skill in order to grow as a person. Now, what is relationship building not? It's not connections. It's not about boosting your LinkedIn profile numbers. It's not about collecting cards at a networking event. It's not sales. Relationships shouldn't be transactional. They shouldn't be one-sided. You shouldn't go into them thinking, what can I get out of this? It's about a shared experience and shared interests and shared motivations. And so we'll talk more about what relationships are in the presentation. Okay. So let's first examine different types of relationships that we have. And we're calling these communities because you're part of different communities all over the place. You've got your family, you've got significant others, friends, AK Psi, you've got your workplace, maybe you're part of a CrossFit gym, maybe you're part of a church, whatever. You've got all these different communities that you're part of. And the thing is, you act differently in each one of these communities. Maybe you wouldn't speak to your significant other like you speak to your work friends. You might have a different lingo you use when in your CrossFit group or your AK Psi group. And it's important to know that that's fine. There is a little bit of code switching involved, but it's not that you're different. You're still you. You're just highlighting different aspects of yourself in each community. But it is important to understand how you act in each community in order to fully comprehend how you can improve building relationships in those areas. Okay. So just understanding that, how you act in each one. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about some practical skills when it comes to relationship building. And what you need to do is examine each of these skills in the context of each of these different relationships. Okay. So they're going to be general practices, and you can kind of specify them to who you are as a person in each scenario that you're coming in contact with. Okay. So first, we're going to talk about probably the most critical one, and that's being authentically genuine. Okay, that title is redundant on purpose because it is one of the most crucial aspects of building relationships. It's representing yourself in an honest depiction and really going into the relationship, into that interaction with the right mindset. Okay, so what does it mean? It means you're asking questions to understand. Your goal when you enter into a relationship or enter into a conversation is, I want to know more about this person. What can I learn? What new thing can I learn from them? Okay. So ask questions to understand. You're listening first, you're injecting second. Listen to what this person has to offer. Okay. And you're being honest. You're honestly representing yourself. Okay. It's a good thing to have a perspective shift here, because that's really what it's all about. Is we're not learning. It is a skill, but it's also a shift in your perspective from what can I get out of this person to who is this person in front of me. Okay. And then relationships aren't a zero-sum game. It's not like I win, you lose. There's no game theory involved. You shouldn't go in with this thought of like, I don't know. I've encountered some people, and it's just like, it's not a notch. It's not a tally that you're tallying up. No, your goal should be, I want to get to know a new person today, or I want to build up this encounter that I have with this person. Okay. And so it looks a little different in different contexts. So I'm just going to give you a few examples of myself and my life of how this looks differently. So in my job, I talk to prospective students about Loyola, okay? And how I act genuinely and how I be genuine in that conversation is, first, I'm seeking to understand who they are, okay? So they'll come up to a table and they'll say, hi, we'll make the introductions, I'm your admissions counselor. And then I'm going to ask them, what do you want to know more about college? Or what are you looking for in a college? That's an open-ended question that gets them to tell me what they're interested in. I'm trying to get their interests and their motivations. And the key to that question too is it doesn't require a one-word answer. It requires a sentence or two answer. And that's really important to starting a conversation with someone that you're building a relationship. When they're able to talk to you, you have the option to go in a couple different areas. So often I'll ask that first question, and I'll ask maybe a few follow-up questions, just kind of really get a range of what they're trying to tell me and what they're looking for. The key to that too is actively listening to the responses. Okay. So when you're talking with someone, we have a tendency to think about what we're going to say next. But really you should try your hardest. This is a skill that you need to perfect, to tell your mind, no, I need to listen to what they're saying. Okay. Because if you don't listen to what they're saying, you might miss out on some really good nuggets that you can bring up later too. Okay. So as they talk, I'm listening to their responses, and then I'm going to ask my next question. Okay. And then once I kind of got an idea of what they're looking for, I'm able to tell them, represent Loyola and what their interests are, and tell them what we have to offer. Now, if they're looking for pack the house football every Saturday night, then I'm not going to tell them Loyola is great for that, because we don't have a football team, right? So there's also a thing about being honest and being genuine. If they're looking for engineering, I'm not going to say, oh, well, Loyola's a great engineering school, because we're not a great engineering school. And so it's also being honest in these conversations. When you meet a new person, it looks a little different too. You know, you might ask those open-ended questions. You're wanting to discover interests and motivations from that person, so that you can identify your interests and motivations and see how there's connections, genuine connections there too. Okay. So we're actively listening, be genuinely interested too. That's another thing about being genuine. Have you ever talked to somebody, and while you're talking to them, they're gazing about the audience, looking for the next conversation that they're going to have? That's not cool, right? And you don't appreciate that. So being genuine is also being actually interested. Pay attention to who you're talking to. Look them in the eye, not creepily, but just engage with them too. Okay. Being genuine is being interested. Okay. Now, it's the start of all relationship building. It should be a key component to everything you do from now on. But you have to work on it. Okay. It's a skill. It's a mindset that you have to master. Okay. Awesome. So next skill, the platinum rule. All right. So you probably heard of the golden rule, right? The golden rule says treat others how you would like to be treated, right? Well, the platinum rule goes one step further in. It says treat others how they would like to be treated. Now, this is interesting because the focus is now on them. Okay. And so really you have to know who you're speaking to in that relationship. Where are they coming from? Okay. It's all about learning what their perspective is, putting yourself in their shoes. All right. So how do we do that? A good thing is to understand the context of what you're talking to them about, where you're talking to them. So that's physical. Are you talking at a conference? Are you talking at a chapter meeting? Are you talking at a restaurant? Whatever the context is will kind of describe what kind of conversation you're going to have, right? You're not going to ask someone some deep, dark motivations if you're at a conference, right? That's not really conference conversations, you know? So understanding the physical context gives you understanding of what, how you can communicate to them, how you can treat them. Also identifying their motivations and what they're looking for in the conversation. When I'm talking to a student about Loyola, it's very easy to know because I know their motivation is I want to learn about colleges, but it's kind of harder to distinguish based on, where you're having this conversation with this person. But you have some context clues. Maybe like everyone at this conference is here for this one thing, or that a mutual friend has connected you to, and so something based on the friend about this person. You're using the information that to kind of understand how this person works, how they communicate. All right. Now, when we're talking to this person, communication is all about how they want to receive it and how you're giving it. So understanding communication styles is very key. All right. For instance, there's all kinds of different nuances involved with it. So does this person like one-on-one conversation? Does it like group conversation? Are they a talker? Are they a questioner? Do they just ask a bunch of questions? Understanding how they communicate and understanding how you can communicate are very important skills. So for instance, me, I'm fine talking. I like to talk. I can do it in a group setting. I can do it one-on-one. I can do it on a stage with a microphone. Okay. I also like to say things. So I know that when I'm in a conversation, I can tend to be very dominant. All right. So my mindset is always like, am I talking too much or am I talking too fast? Maybe I need to pull back a little bit. So knowing that how I speak and how I communicate, I can know how I can change to different settings too. Right. Another thing I do is just kind of ramble a little bit or slur my words together. So I know that I'm excited. I need to slow down a little bit. So that understanding how you communicate, you can shift to talking with other people. Okay. Little side note, little example, my significant other, she is very empathetic, great listener, very quiet, great on one-on-one interactions, right? I know that if we're having a conversation, I need to shut up. I need to pull back on the reins a little bit and give her a space to speak, or else she won't speak. And so if you have those domineering communication styles, understand that you need to allow people to speak and vice versa. So it depends on who you are and how you communicate. Okay. The goal here though, is to kind of speak to people how they want to be spoken to. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, and when you understand where a person is coming from, it's easy to identify their interests and see if their interests are aligned with what you're doing. Great. Okay. Words are precious. Don't waste it. Every interaction you have with a person, it means something. You'll be surprised what people remember when you talk to them. So we're making sure that we're not wasting any interactions we have with people. This is very important when you do an initial interaction with somebody, when you initially meet with somebody, but it's also important for someone you talk to 50 times, So the first thing you should think about whenever you're talking with somebody, think about goals. All right. Now, this isn't goals as in like, I want to sell them something or I hope I want them to be best friends. It's more of like goals as in like, these are the kind of the things I want to learn about this person today. So usually what I do is when I'm driving somewhere, driving to an event, I know I'm going to see a few people. I'm thinking about topics that I want to talk to that person about to see where they're coming from, to learn more about them. It even could be just like a couple seconds before you enter a conversation, just thinking about, I wonder what this is like, what this looks like in this person's life. Okay. So just think about your goals, make sure they're relevant to the person. Just take a second to think about those. It's still genuine. You're still acting genuinely because you're just genuinely curious about these certain topics. And then you don't have a lull in the conversation later on too. Okay. Now, not wasting our words means asking the right questions. Okay. Like I said earlier, open-ended questions are the best because they require more than a one-word response. All right. When someone gives you one word, you don't really have many paths to go for the conversation. But if they're giving you a sentence or two, you can kind of direct that conversation to your goals that you had in mind. And it's easier to flow from that there. Okay. One thing I would like to say is you can use what you've already know about this person to use to ask those questions. The other thing is, one question I usually hear a lot is, what do you do for a living? Or what do you do? What do you work? That question's okay, but I would challenge you to think of something else, because oftentimes some people don't like their job. Some people don't want to talk about work outside of work. And that's okay in a context. If you're at a conference and you want to know what their specific job is, that's fine. But if you're meeting a new person at a friend group and you say, what do you do? It's I don't know, it's just very commonplace. So I want to challenge you. Maybe think about something that asks about their interests or what else they're doing. I usually say, like, hey, what does your week look like? Or what have you been working on? Or what have you been doing recently? It kind of gets a different aspect about who they are. A good question that I really like to use is a clarifying question. So oftentimes it comes like when we're talking about something. At the end, I like to say a clarifying question to wrap up what I've learned about this person. Okay. So for instance, at work, someone's like, hey, I want to do this certain thing with the software, and they'll explain what they want to do, and then I'll say, okay, so what I'm hearing is you want to be able to text students with this software in this demographic, and they'll either say, yes, that's exactly what I want to do, or yes, but I want to change, but actually I want to do this thing too. So clarifying questions are great to sum up a conversation you've had with somebody. And also make sure that you're on the same page before you leave a conversation, because maybe, I don't know if this happened to you, but sometimes you leave a conversation thinking one thing and then you find out later that that's not what that conversation was about. So clarifying questions are a great way to get on the same page with somebody. All right. Think forward, not novel. That word is forward on purpose, because if you read a book, a forward is the 2 pages in the beginning that tell you this is going to be a great book, right? And so understanding that initial interactions with people, when you first meet someone, they're short interactions. They're really quick. And you need to be able to not give away the whole novel in that little short interaction. Just, keep it brief. Understand, set yourself up for the next interactions. Okay. So don't ramble. Be really good at being storytellers. And that's a whole nother presentation in of itself, being a good storyteller. But when you tell a story, get to the point, make it memorable, okay? The whole point of initial interaction is making sure that you make an impact on a person and that they know who you are later on. And then you're setting yourself up for interactions later on, okay? So think forward, not novel. And then turn your filter on. So this has 2 meanings, okay? One meaning is relevance. We want to make sure that everything we're talking about in that conversation is related to our goals, but it's relevant to the situation at hand. Okay. A common thing that happens is maybe every time you see someone, you talk about sports or football or whatever. That's great for initial interactions where you don't really know people. But if this is a friend you see once a week for 10 weeks and you're still talking about sport, just talking about sports, I'm going to challenge you to make it a little bit more relevant, go a little deeper in that relationship. So whatever the topic is, sports is just most common for me. Whatever the topic is, I'd say in your later interactions, go a little deeper, ask about something else. And then also turning your filter on and also talking about, just don't be offensive. Don't be damaging. Don't say anything damaging. And this is probably more towards the people who, like me, talk too much or talk a lot and have a lot of energy. You're just going, and all of a sudden you say something, you're like, I didn't mean to say that one, right? Turn your filter on. Give yourself a couple seconds. Think through what you're about to say and make sure it means what you want it to mean. Okay, you can always clarify afterwards, but once you say things, they're permanent. All right, so just making sure that we have a filter on before we say everything. Okay. And the last skill we have here is being intentional. Okay. This is putting everything together. This is very key to growing relationships. Okay. So remember, you're part of a community of many different people, and you need relationships to learn and grow yourself, but also to be a better leader. You need to be able to foster great relationships. Okay. You need to do it intentionally. All right. So make a point to reach out to others. I call it the get out your office rule. All right. So oftentimes you get to work, you hunker down in your little nest, you get started on things, and you probably don't leave your office unless you need to go to the bathroom or you need a lunch break. All right. And that's fine. But if we're going to be intentional about fostering relationships, you need to get out your office and walk around a little bit. Maybe it means taking a longer route to the break room and popping your head into a few people's offices. It means, having intentional conversations, like going out of your way to speak to someone and say, hey, how was your weekend? Happy birthday. That's a great thing to do. Talk to people on their birthday. Talk to people that you don't normally talk to. If you see the same 3 friends every day at work, maybe go pop your head in someone's office you haven't talked to in a while. Okay. But relationships don't grow unless you make them grow. So you need to put yourself in a position where you can talk to more people than you usually talk to. What I like to do is when I'm going throughout my day, I'll usually think of a person and I'll say, oh, I haven't talked to that person in a while. And I'll send them a meaningful text saying, hey, just think about you this morning. Maybe I'll ask them a question or ask how things are going. And maybe a conversation will follow there. But at the least, they know that I'm thinking about them. And that goes a long way in building a relationship as well. Change up your routines, change up your patterns. Maybe you take a different way to work, or maybe you just you go visit someone that you haven't seen in a while, but you have to be intentional about reaching out to others. All right, always be willing to lend a hand. That's the team player principle. Look, if there's something that comes up in work and someone has to do a task, like you offering to help out with that task will go a long way. Okay. So take advantage of opportunities to help others, whether that's a special work project or babysitting a cousin or helping a buddy move. I mean, these are opportunities for you to say, I care about you and I'm coming to help you no matter what. And so let me give you an example. I moved recently and I hate asking for people to help me, but I asked my friends to help me, and you know what? They showed up. And not only did they showed up with such a great attitude. They were like, look, we're here. We're coming to help move these boxes and we're going to have a great time doing it. And so what they did was they made me laugh the whole time. They just told jokes and we just had a great time. And I mean, moving sucks, but they made it a really fun time. And that helped our relationship grow tremendously because they were saying, hey, I know you have an issue. I'm here to help you with your issue. And I'm going to bring a positive attitude while I do it. And that goes a long way. So don't be afraid to volunteer for that work project. Don't be afraid to help on that committee or do something extra in the organization. It goes a long way. And you're doing this not because you expect something in return. If you are doing it because you expect something in return, just don't do it. Okay. You do it because you care about the person you're helping. And you want to just say that you care about them. Remember, relationships are a two-way street. So you have to make an effort. They don't just happen magically. If you aren't satisfied about where a relationship is, do something about it. Go out of your way, talk to that person, reach out. But then realize that not everybody wants to be your friend. Not everybody wants to continue that relationship, and that's fine. But on your end, you have to make the effort. You have to be intentional with everything you do in order to foster and grow those relationships. Okay. Awesome. The whole goal of this is right here. My motto when I'm for everything, but also relationship, is you achieve your dreams by helping others achieve theirs. Okay. So go invest in other people's lives. Investing in other people is by far the best thing you can do for yourself, because you're getting to learn and grow about others. And that's going to energize you as well. And as well, people will reciprocate. People respond to acts of love and encouragement. Okay. And so if you're going to be a good leader, if you're going to be a good person, you need to invest in others. And remember, relationships aren't a zero-sum game. They're not a give and take, or they're not a give and take. They're not a I win, you lose situation. They're win-win. Okay. So taking all that we know here, just going to introduce these topics real quick. Okay. So how can you shift? We're going to talk about these discussion questions in our breakout rooms in a second, but how can you shift meeting a new person from being transactional to being relational? Because that's really what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make that mental shift. Okay. What skill resonated most with you, and how can you incorporate it into your life? Because understanding these skills, they were general, but you can definitely specify them in your situations. And how will you be more intentional in your current relationships? All right. And all of these really try and be as specific as possible. Okay. But that's all I have for y'all today. Thank you. My email address is at the bottom here today. I could have talked about a lot of these subtopics for a long, long time. If you have some questions or a relationship you're looking to grow more, or you kind of just want to bounce some ideas off of me, shoot me an email. We can have that conversation for sure. Okay. But that's all I have to say. Thank you, everybody.